International Podcast Day is September 30th, and you can help spread the word. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved? It's pretty simple. Head over to internationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. Then use hashtag International Podcast Day to join the conversation. You can reach out and connect with other podcasters, listeners, and your favorite podcast hosts. Remember September 30th, International Podcast Day, a day-long celebration of the power of podcasts.
This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles Podcast. My name is Daniel Smrokowski. I'm the founder and host of Special Chronicles and the Southern Tribal Global Messenger alum with Special Olympics. So excited to be bringing you an extra episode this week. You're probably used to only hearing one episode on Mondays, but today it's September 30th, International Podcast Day. And so we're going to rebroadcast a special episode, an extra episode in celebration of International Podcast Day. That's today, that's September 30th. Our friend Tim Shriver, chairman of Special Olympics and founder of Unite, is premiering a new podcast of his own this week called Need a Lift with Tim Shriver. As a way to celebrate the power of podcasts, we want you listening right now to go follow and listen to Tim Shriver's new podcast, Need a Lift. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, Special Chronicles, go listen and follow his. We are going to share the trailer of his podcast with you all, and then immediately following that, we're going to rebroadcast a 1-hour conversation with my good friend, Tim Shriver, about his book, The Call to Unite. And so we thought it's perfect timing with International Podcast Day and Tim premiering his new podcast. So we hope that you all enjoy it right here on specialchronicles.com. So hopefully you guys all will go and after you follow Special Chronicles podcast, you go follow Need a Lift with Tim Shriver. And please leave a review for both of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and let more people out there know. And with that, here is Need a Lift with Tim Shriver.
So for a lot of us, it's really hard to find a place where you feel belonging, where you feel rest. Like it's really hard to find a community in which you really feel like you fit in, you're seen, you're okay. But for me, I found one. It's a small chapel. I go there almost every day at 5:30. And before I get there, I'm all wound up and what do I have to do and what I'm behind on and what I need to be ahead of. And I can almost picture myself just pulling the door open. And as I walk in, it's almost like I've crossed a threshold, like I've entered into a new space, a new zone. And I can look around the room and see all the people gathered. And there's just sort of like a deep breath. And I'm present in a space where I just have to be. And I don't know most of these people really well. I mean, some of them I've never even spoken to. But we're just there for each other. It's kind of the way in which community happens, a little bit mysteriously. Just us, in the room, the same folks, no task, just offering prayers for those who've died, prayers for the sadnesses in our lives, prayers for those who are struggling, prayers of gratitude for the great joys we've experienced. That's enough. For me, it's a beautiful community. I'm Tim Shriver, and through my work as an educator and with the athletes and the leaders of the Special Olympics movement around the world, I've spent my life trying to find and build community. And I believe that the best way to connect us is at the soul level, where we find each other's dignity, where we meet each other as we are. So on my new podcast, Need a Lift, I'm asking really wise people of all backgrounds and beliefs, how we can find our way to each other and to ourselves in a time when so much is pulling us apart.
You know, everybody says, oh, we're all the same. We're not all the same. We are different, but it doesn't matter. We have a common bond. We got to take care of this one earth. So we have to take care of each other.
We all need a place to belong. We need a place to come to know that we are loved. And not only that we're loved, but that we have gifts to offer in helping others come to know they're loved.
I'm not so naive to believe that the world that I imagine will actually ever exist, but I'm damn well going to try to build it.
We could model for the world that we can forgive and work together to make the world a better place. I know you're thinking that's impossible, but I have hope.
No, I don't think it's impossible. If there's anyone on earth that can do it, it is you.
So don't miss out. Join us for Need a Lift starting September 30th and weekly every Wednesday after that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen. Together, you'll discover something to believe in from people who make life better.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles show. My name is Daniel, founder of Special Chronicles and a Southern Tribal International Global Messenger with Special Olympics. So excited for to get back behind the microphone and to be speaking with a returning guest. I wish it was in person like the first time he was on, but a returning guest on the Special Chronicles podcast is my friend Tim Shriver. Tim is the founder of Unite, the longtime chair of Special Olympics, a best-selling author, a former teacher, a founding force of the social and emotional learning movement, a film producer, a husband, a father and grandfather, and a seeker of unity in society and in himself. Please put your hands together as we welcome back virtually to the Special Chronicles podcast, my friend Tim Shriver.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. That's very generous for you to have me back. A returning guest, I think, is a distinction not many people have. So I'm very proud that you welcomed me back to this really extraordinary. I mean, I just want to note right at the beginning, what a revolutionary you are. I mean, the whole world is catching up to where you were over 12 years ago. Now everybody's talking podcast. You were doing this more than a decade ago and giving voice to a very important sector of society, to a very important message for our culture, for everyone in our culture. And goodness, you were well ahead of your time. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I kind of, even after 12 years later, I even fumbled through the
No, you didn't fumble at all. Don't worry about it.
Because now adding live streaming to this audio podcast is still, the whole live stream is kind of new to me. But not that many of our guests get to retone, and it was
you really got to know the producer. You got to have to be able to work the tricks and to get back on. I'm very grateful that I was tricky enough to convince you to let me come back.
Yeah, and to know our producer Darian as well. So it was a lot of fun to be in person in Chicago the first time you were on, but since then we both have plunged in DC. We've been to the awesome World Games in Abu Dhabi. And so for any new listeners, why don't I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably remember you from the first time you were on, but for any new
I don't think so. It's been a while.
It's definitely been a while. So we introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us in that introduction, since the last time you were on, you founded the Unite collaborative.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on this time, Daniel, talking about the work of Unite, and in some ways, it's a nice connection to our earlier conversation, because when we were talking in Chicago, we talked about the inclusion revolution. We talked about the athletes of Special Olympics, whose voices are essential to leading the teaching of the social and cultural embodiment of inclusion. And we kicked off this idea of an inclusion revolution. And the word revolution is important here, right? Because the world is not inclusive right now. Even people that talk about inclusion aren't necessarily inclusive. And we've all got work to do. We've seen that over the last year. So starting 2 years ago, I thought to myself, how can I help bring that voice, the voice that you have, the voice that so many Special Olympics athletes have, that have embodied and taught the lessons of inclusion, taught empathy, taught healing, taught relationship building, taught us how to connect and overcome our fear of difference. It was all those lessons I learned from the athletes of Special Olympics that led me to found Unite, which is an effort to bring the rest of the world into that same vision. It's a collaborative, a collective of people determined to try to bring, if I can put it so boldly, love into action to change our country and to heal some of the wounds, both historic and current, that keep us separated from the best in ourselves and from the best in others.
Awesome. Well, a year ago, if you could take us back to a year ago when the global pandemic and COVID-19 got started, the 24-hour live stream event. Can you
you know what happened, Daniel? It's kind of interesting. Sometimes things hit you, right?
Yeah.
And a year ago when the pandemic hit, I was sitting here in my house and talking to some of my colleagues, and they were like, this is the moment to teach the lesson that we need each other. This is the moment to remind everybody to bring out the best in themselves so that they can help others. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, it's the moment, but goodness gracious, the whole world's shutting down, and what can we do? And we brainstormed. So I started making calls. Would you, I called, famous people and not famous people, would you be willing to share your voice about why this is the moment to unite? And everybody said yes. And before you know it, I called a friend of mine who was a producer, and he said, sure, we can put on a show. And one of my colleagues, Misha Robinson, said, well, let's make it a 24-hour. I was like, 24 hours? Are you kidding me? This is crazy. But everyone said yes. And so that created the Call to Unite live stream. You can see it all 25 hours if you want at unite.us. And that led to our book that comes out this week, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening, which is kind of like a handbook. I think of it as a handbook for anybody who's looking for inspiration, who's looking for rest, who's looking for a path forward, who's kind of frustrated, maybe disappointed, maybe even scared about the future. This is the handbook of all these voices who want to join you, who want to remind each of us that we're not alone, that the best in us is also the best in the rest of us. And if we just let it out, if we just take a chance on each other, there's wonderful things we can do to heal our wounds and make a more just and joyful future. So this book is a year in the making, which is kind of, in a way, it's short for a book. You know what I mean? Sometimes books take 5-10 years, but I wrote a book, took me about 10 years to write it. But this one came quickly, and I think it's because so many people want and need to have their confidence and their hope in each other renewed. And this is a book of countless voices, all saying one thing to the reader. We've got this. We can do this. You're capable. You have gifts. Bring them out. I will help you welcome them.
Awesome. Well, in that live stream event, and I tune into not all 24 hours.
That's all right. And almost nobody did. I did 25 hours. Actually, it ended up being 25 hours, but no one else is responsible for doing that. But there are a lot of good short videos still up.
And speaking of some of those videos that took part in the 24-hour live stream, is there a favorite memory or highlight from that event?
Oh, there were so many, Daniel. It's hard for me to. It's hard to single people out. But there were beautiful moments. The Special Olympics athletes from Florida did their version of "Stand by Me," which was just spectacular. Yeah. Loretta's talk about caring and compassion as a healing, as the work of healing her soul and healing others was beautiful. Devon Franklin spoke about finding your superpower and recognizing that deep within you there's a gift that you need to bring out. The rapper Common, he said, your soul is listening to the music of angels. Let it rest in that music and then bring it out. Pastor Rick Warren spoke about people who were on the edge of suicide, and he just looked right into the camera and said, if you're struggling, I'm praying for you, call me. And then he put his email address right into the stream. Reach out. Don't feel alone. So people were super hungry to give of themselves. Oprah talking about the inner life of our country. That was just beautiful with Eckhart Tolle. And then T.D. Jakes said something I just doesn't leave me. He said, he was talking about the pain that people were going through and how many funerals he was presiding at during the midst of the pandemic. And he said, pain always leaves a gift. He didn't say pain is a gift. He just said it leaves a gift. And it struck me, that so many of our athletes, maybe you, Daniel, would understand that, that so many of our athletes have experienced so much pain, physical pain, emotional pain, social exclusion. But somehow I think in our community, people understand and find the gift. It doesn't excuse the pain, but it allows people to overcome it with a new kind of wisdom, maybe a new kind of blessing, a new kind of insight that they carry forward with them as a gift to others and a gift to themselves. These are just moments that, you can see. I don't have to look at the book to remember them. They're just fresh in my heart and my mind. I keep the book on my bedside, at night. You only have to read a page, sometimes just a paragraph. You don't have to read the whole book. I know a lot of people don't like to read long books anymore. This is a book you only have to read a page, and I'm so confident. I'd almost say it's a money back guarantee. Read a page or two, and you'll find something that will stir you and strengthen you, and I would say give you a little bit of rest. And a lot of us need some rest from all of the challenges. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I definitely know as an athlete, both myself and my fellow SSI GMs and fellow 6.6 million athletes, that we have dealt with a lot of pain and exclusion, and I love that you said that how pain leaves a gift. So now moving on, and can I ask you, Daniel? Can I turn the microphone?
Yeah.
When you think of the gifts that the struggles have taught you, does something come to mind?
Yeah, there's one, and I've written about it in a couple columns related to the Spread the Word campaign. And there was one time in middle school when they posted the honor roll list on the wall, and there was some peers that didn't have ID, and they didn't know that I was standing behind them, and they said, "Why is that retard on the list?" And they didn't know that I was standing behind them, and that I never did tell any of my teachers or my case manager. I probably should have, but that's still that pain. And I talked with my fellow SSI GM, Lene, who I'm from Hawaii, that as well. And we did a 2-hour episode that just aired. It's live now. It just aired a couple of days ago, and she spoke of a lot of that same pain that I just shared with you now. That it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. Well, I'm sorry. And I think one of the beautiful things you've just given to me is the courage to share it, and showing me how much bravery it takes to name the moments where you felt excluded, where we feel, some of us hide from those. Some of those, we're so ashamed of ourselves. We're so ashamed of what happens to us that we're scared to tell each other.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm feeling at least the gift that pain has left you is the courage and the bravery to be a person who speaks out and who is unafraid to tell the truth to all of the rest of us. And wow, that's a heck of a gift.
Yeah. Well, and it's like that one part of our athlete oath, let me be brave in the attempt. I think that also kind of speaks to what you said.
Yeah. Well, it speaks to what you said.
Yeah, that speaks to what I said. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I just want to make sure that I'm recognizing, and this is part of the message, Daniel, of this book, is that the wisdom people are looking for, we sometimes think is somewhere else. We have to find it from celebrities. We have to find it from scholars or CEOs or television personalities even. The wisdom we're seeking is within us. Every one of us has it. That's the magic. You just shared the wisdom of the call to unite from your experience. And you're exceptional, I agree. But I think part of what the message of this podcast is that everybody has the wisdom. You don't have to wait even for this book. I mean, some of the people in this book you will never have heard of.
Yeah.
They're just average people. They're nurses, they're kids, they're Special Olympics athletes. But wow, when you read it, you're reminded not just of what they have, but what they're telling you have.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So a brief follow-up question from my producer and mutual friend, Darian, who couldn't be on today because she's on a plane right now. But and
I know Darian very well. She's a turbocharger of change here in our local community and around the world.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And so she had a question for you, and it's about the 24 live stream that you just talked about, and you kind of answered it. But how were you able to get such a powerhouse of people? Was it short notice, or was there some time in planning?
It was very short notice, and I think it was simply the power of the moment. When that pandemic was wreaking havoc on our lives, and if you read the first couple of contributions to the book, you'll read Daniil Schmal describing, for instance, as a nurse, going into the hospital every day and not being able to ventilate people and watching people die and not being able to help them see their families and having to be with them in their last moments as a professional, but trying to console them and just breaking down on her way home, just sobbing, and then reaching out to people because she thought, man, I'm just so alone. I'm overwhelmed. What can I do? I feel like, this is an apocalypse, and thousands of people reaching back out to her and feeling like her suffering and the suffering of her patients was being shared and held and carried by all those around her. And it was that moment when we started calling people saying, are you in? And everybody was like, yes, I'm in. What can I do? I want to respond. It's ironic. I think it's fair to say it's ironic that sometimes the worst of times bring out the best in people. Not always, but many times. And in this moment, when we were all as a family, as a human family, not as a Special Olympics family, not as an American, as a human family, we were all looking at each other and with terror and pain and struggle and loss. All these people just said yes. It took 2 weeks to assemble 270 people from around the world. It was amazing and a great, I think, tribute to what we can do, what we can be when we're asked. Rick Warren says this in the thing. People will make change if they know how and if they know why. And in this moment, in the pandemic, people were willing to make a difference and make a change because they understood just how important it was to others.
Awesome. Well, now let's get into a little bit more of the book. And you co-edited it with Tom
Roshert. Yeah.
Roshert. Tell us a little bit about the process of co-editing the book with Tom and how you got connected.
Well, we started with a manuscript from the 25 Hours, and Tom is a brilliant writer, an extraordinary editor, and he's written speeches for Bill Clinton and all kinds of prominent leaders around the world for his whole life, and I asked Tom, will you take a look at all this text and see what you think? See if there's a book here. And he went through the whole thing. And I picked up the phone. And I was ready for him to say, look, it was a good show, Tim, but this isn't a book. And he said, this is a better book even than the show. And I said, what do you mean? He says, you won't believe what's on the printed page. So he sent me stuff. I sent him stuff. We started pouring through the contributions. And the book wrote itself. I mean, it was a lot of work for 3 or 4 months, but the book in some ways wrote itself. The really hard part was getting everybody to sign permission slips. You know what it's like when you have a field trip in school, getting all the kids to get their permission slips in. We have over 100 authors, so getting everybody's permission slip in was the hardest part, actually.
Awesome. And you said over 100 authors. Did all 270 people that took part in that first live stream event, did they all contribute?
Well, they're all in the book, but a lot of them were musical performances, so it's hard. You can't really put music in a book. And some of them, some of the contributions were immersed in particular settings where it didn't really translate into the word. It was more a visual experience. So not every contribution from the show is in the book, but we thank everyone who was in the show, and we tried to include as many as we could. But there'll be other opportunities, trust me. Everyone, I think this is just in some ways the beginning because, there are other challenges out there, Daniel. You know this.
Yeah.
It's not just that we needed to unite around responding to the pandemic. We've got other challenges, the challenge of inclusion for people with special needs. We need to unite the country around that.
Yeah.
We need to unite the country around our children who don't have laptops, who don't have food, don't have housing, who don't have access to good schools, who don't have transportation. We need to unite our country around our children. So these are things I hope in the future, many of these contributors and many more like them will see the chance to contribute to a future calls to unite and say, sure, I'm in. I've got something to contribute. I want to unite too. I want to respond to the needs of kids, or I want to respond to the needs of parents in this very difficult time. There's so many issues. I want to respond to the needs and the gifts of people with intellectual and developmental challenges so that their voices are heard. What about if we united the country around that? Wouldn't that be spectacular? These are all future ideas.
Awesome. Well, our guest on this Special Chronicles show is Tim Shriver, talking about his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. I think I got the title right.
You got it. Nailed it.
So without even totally looking at the notes. So you, because I've got the notes here on the iPad right next to me. But yeah. So you wrote the foreword to the book. The Call to Unite is not an event. It's well, okay. I'm quoting here from what you wrote in the foreword of the book. The Call to Unite is not an event. It's not a book. It doesn't belong to a group. It's a voice surrounding. It's a voice sounding inside of us. In every crisis, and if you listen to our hearts, we can hear the call to unite. It's what invites us to hope. It's what guides us to love. It's what sustains us on the journey to justice. So the reason why I'm quoting this particular quote that you wrote in the foreword is because recently I gave a speech as a Southern Shriver International Global Messenger just a couple last month, and I'd like you to comment on this quote that I came up with because I believe it relates to what you wrote in the foreword of the book on the call to unite, that guides us to love. And so here's my quote. I've posted it a couple of times on my Instagram, but here's the quote that I came up with that the Special Olympics office, they posted it last fall, but hate can be met by love. We Special Olympics athletes show love when we are met with hate. That's exactly the way I have always been. No matter what, when people say bad stuff about me and my friends, I smile, I listen, and I stay happy and joyful when interacting with them. That's what I've always shown. So I was wondering if you could kind of comment on that quote as it relates to the forward of the book.
Well, I think it takes a profound soul and a profound wisdom to be able to meet hate with love. I think love is the only power capable of defeating hate. And yet, most of us, I'm sorry to say, respond to hate with hate.
Yeah.
Very few great souls in the religious traditions, we might have called them saints, rise to the capacity to meet hatred with love. And the fact that you have articulated this as your own value and your own commitment and your own experience reminds, I think, all of us that through your life, you have found a deep sense of strength. This doesn't come from a book. I'm sorry to say. I think it comes, I would ask you, where did you learn that? How did you learn that? How do you practice? I mean, this is what we're all trying to learn. How do you know how, when that moment comes, when those kids make fun of you, if that were to happen today, how do you do it? How do you meet that moment of hatred? Because that's what it was.
Yeah.
With love. How do you do it?
I think a lot of it has to do with my Catholic faith. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But then also just, I don't know, there's just something else just inside of me that I just try just to love everybody that and really not see the hate in the people that show me hate or intolerance.
Well, I mean, I think your faith is obviously a beautiful one, Daniel, really. Yeah. And obviously you practice it. You know, faith isn't something it's something I like to remind people. Faith is a practice, whatever your faith is, whether your faith is in humanity or in nature or in God or in Jesus or in Moses or in Muhammad or in the Buddha. Faith is a practice. And clearly, when you practice, you get better at holding that center of love in the face of all the turmoil. And you've obviously got a wonderful practice. And I hope in the future, maybe you'll do a podcast on faith, on your faith, maybe with one or two other guests who inspire you in your faith. Because I think there's a real hunger. You know, not everybody wants to join someone else's religion. But I like to say we all like to join one additional religion, which is we may be Catholic, we may be Jewish, we may be Mormon or Muslim or congregational or, you know, whatever. But we can also be uniters.
Yeah.
We can also be, just as you've just said, people who meet hate with love, no matter what our tradition. And that unites us. That gift, that challenge, that invitation.
Well, speaking to that request that you just put out there to do a podcast on faith, my dad actually told me he saw on TV Father James Mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Don't know him.
With him, but he I think he's involved like with the America magazine and he.
Father James Martin. Yes, I'm sorry. I do know him now that you mentioned him.
Yes. Yeah. So my dad said that I should try to get him on. And
you should, and he'd be good.
It would be good to kind of talk about that topic.
I think on that topic you could spend a year of podcasts. I'm not kidding. You know, that's the podcast you can go to as a listener, where you learn how to meet hatred with love. That is a big idea. And you are uniquely poised to do it. So I hope you'll not just do one podcast on it, but many.
Yeah. And I'm really trying to kind of have different series of different.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, I think that's a big idea and a challenge. Only because we're all struggling with it. So it's not.
So I made a note of it. So I'm gonna.
I know. I'm here telling you what to do. You're supposed to be asking me questions, and I'm giving you.
well, that's the awesomeness about a conversation. But with that, we're going to go ahead and take a short sponsor break to mention our sponsors on this podcast. When we come back, we'll hear your thoughts on the epilogue that your sister Maria wrote and her new publishing imprint, and a few selections and a few final messages that kind of sum up the whole book. All that is coming up after the break. You're listening to the Special Chronicles Podcast. Our guest is Tim Shriver, talking about his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. We'll be right back on SpecialChronicles.com. Support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a nonprofit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcast, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. The Energy Force is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives and really is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they're literally giving a voice to people with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd.
Hi, my name is Lisa Noble, and I'm a ComEd Energy Force Ambassador and an athlete with Special Olympics Illinois.
Hi, my name is Daniel Smrokowski, and I also am a ComEd Energy Force Ambassador and founder of a company called Special Chronicles.
The ComEd Energy Force program is a program that hires people with disabilities to teach the public how to save energy and money.
It's the country's first energy efficiency program of its kind.
Saving energy is especially important while everyone is at home due to COVID-19. We're using more electricity than ever before. Just think about how many more times you are opening the refrigerator door these days.
And while the economy is stressed, it's more critical than ever to save money where we can. Following these tips can save energy and money in this time of COVID-19.
Wash your clothes in cold water and use the dryer sparingly.
Your dryer can take up to 7 times more energy than the washer.
Turn off and unplug any electrical devices or power strips you are not using.
Electrical devices can continue to zap power even when turned off if they're still plugged in. We call them vampire devices.
Use LED bulbs.
They use 25% less energy than incandescent bulbs and last up to 25 times longer, saving you lots of money over time.
Keep your refrigerator between 35 and 38 degrees.
And be sure to use Energy Star appliances.
And last but not least, check out ComEd.com/home savings for more tips and rebates.
Lisa and I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.
Remember, we are all in this together.
Stay healthy.
And stay safe.
Bye.
COVID-19, better known as coronavirus, has spread throughout the world. Information about children with this disease is limited, but they are known to have had mild symptoms. Many organizations are responding accordingly depending upon their area. It's best to stay home and away from others, especially when sick, and continue following healthy hand wash guidelines, covering mouth and nose and not touching your face or high-touch surfaces. Clean and disinfect high-touch surfaces regularly, and for more information, please visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Thank you.
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising.
Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference.
Difference. Our demands are
equality.
Dignity.
And the recognition of our
shared humanity.
We will not stop or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles show. My name is Daniel, founder of Special Chronicles and the Southern Tribal International Global Messenger with Special Olympics. Guest is Tim Shriver, co-editor of the new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and an Awakening. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you, Daniel. Nice to be back.
And your sister Maria wrote the epilogue and is behind her new publishing imprint, The Open Field. Share with us a little bit about her involvement in the book, from the epilogue that she wrote, and also a little bit about this new publishing imprint, The Open Field.
Yeah, so Maria obviously is my big sister. She's, obviously known me since I was born and has been a best friend, my best friend, for almost as long as I can remember. She's like this extraordinarily gifted human being at inviting people into what she calls the open field, the place of no judgment. Maria's your coach, your best friend, that advisor who doesn't judge you, but who helps you find your best self. And that's what her imprint is all about. So when we were coming up with this idea of the book, she kind of said, look, this is a book for the open field. And I was like, sounds great to me. So she and I got to work together on this. We don't often get to work together. We talk all the time, but we don't often get to work together. And it was a thrill to be able to work together to create something as beautiful as this book. And her words in the epilogue, I know you've read it, but are striking. It's almost worth buying the book just for her essay at the end of it.
Awesome. So we won't give too much away because we want our listeners. We put a link up on our website, but it's an Amazon affiliate link. So if you go to specialchronicles.com/unite book, it will let you know that you came through Special Chronicles, and then we get Amazon gets a small cut. So
good.
Go to Special Chronicles.
Buy books in bulk, so Special Chronicles will benefit. And when you're done buying the books in bulk, by the way, all the proceeds from the book go to Fund Unite. It's a charitable book, so you don't have to worry about any of us benefiting personally. But I hope people will buy lots of books, and then when they get done, click on the Special Chronicles site to make a contribution to supporting the podcast. Yeah. That's even more than you give for the book, because it's so important, I think, Daniel, to have your voice continue to be strong and in the culture and bringing other voices like yours to listeners around the world.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that plug. And if a listener want to, after you go and buy the book, go to specialchronicles.com/give. And I just got off a FaceTime call yesterday with somebody that is signing on for a monthly for 1 year. They're making a gift every month for the next year. So
wow, fantastic. So that's something we can all do. We just go there and we can give a monthly gift for a full year.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you make a monthly gift at specialchronicles.com/give. And then let's say right now, Daniel, if they give a gift, what's a level? If they give a gift, we'll give them a free book. How much?
Let's say $30.
$30? No, they have to do more than that because the book costs $30.
Oh, okay.
Let's say. I'm going to say if they make a gift of $250 to Special Chronicles, I will be responsible for giving them a free book. I'll even, if they want me to, I'll even sign the book if you make a gift of $250 to specialchronicles.com. I don't know how we'll make that work, but anybody that wants to make a gift of that amount to the podcast, to the Special Chronicles podcast of $250 gets a free book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. And if you want it signed by Tim, you can have that too. How's that?
Awesome. So we'll off air, we'll have your team talk with.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. If anybody makes that contribution, we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Well,
I hope you get 100 contributions
hundreds,
of $250, because then I sell 100. I give away 100 books, and you get enough money to keep the podcast going.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for that. So, folks, go and make go and donate $250 to specialchronicles.com/give, and then you can get a free signed copy of Tim's
Call to Unite.
That's
right.
Awesome.
Now we're making deals right on the air. I love it.
We're making deals right on the air. So now there was a lot of, and I made a few notes as you saw in the show notes, and we don't have time to go through all of them, but before I ask for a couple of your favorite selections and pieces from the book that stand out to you, I want to have you comment on one, and it's a question from my mom. But one of the selections I'd like to comment on is titled "Small Gestures Can Make a Big Difference" by actress and producer Jennifer Garner and your brother, Senior Vice President of U.S. Programs and Advocacy for Save the Children, Mark Shriver, who I don't know if you knew, but when we were at the Young Athletes event in Abu Dhabi, I got a chance to interview Mark after emceeing, after co-emceeing the event with Brina. So the work never stops. But it was fun to chat with Mark in Abu Dhabi. So the question, as it relates to this selection that Mark and John Garner wrote, is I know that you have a strong interest in education because of so many school-age children have fallen behind during the pandemic. There was talk of a need for a national tutoring corps. Do you think this national tutoring corps might happen, and do you think that it will help the movement of inclusion for so many people with ID like myself who have fallen through the cracks? I mean, I'm not in school anymore, but for people younger than me.
I was going to say, you don't need any tutoring.
No.
No, well, look, I think what Jen Gardner was saying and what my brother Mark was saying was not to underestimate your gift. Not to underestimate that you have something to give. A lot of people, I think, sit at home thinking, what can I do? And this book is all about reminding you have a gift that the world uniquely needs. Jen Garner says, give it. Some of the authors in here say, one selection talks about sending a love note. Now, here's something everyone could do today. Pick up your text or take out a piece of paper and just send a note to someone saying, I just want you to know I was thinking about you and I love you. And then sign it. Now, we might think, well, what difference does that make? What change will that bring about? And I think it actually sends a tidal wave. Jose Andres in the book calls it an empathy explosion. Out into the world when we do those kinds of things. Our kids need us now. You can send a note to a parent, as Dr. Shafali says in the book, inside the soul of a parent, everything is born. So you mentioned your mom, Daniel. Everything that you learned early in life came from the soul of your mother. And there are tons of moms out there struggling right now who would love to hear from you, whoever's listening. They'd love, everyone knows a mom. Reach out to her, whether her kids are 2 months old or 25 years old or 65 years old. Reach out to her. Thank her for being a mom. Encourage her to continue to give unselfishly to her children. Remind her to take care of herself. Tell her that you believe in her so that maybe she'll believe more in herself, because we all need those kinds of reinforcements. I hope we'll launch this year what I call a Marshall Plan for America's Children, where we do mentoring and tutoring and mental health services and all kinds of supports for families and children who have been through this trauma. After World War II, we created a Marshall Plan to rebuild a continent. After this pandemic, we need a Marshall Plan to rebuild our own communities. And I hope that maybe in a small way, this book will remind people that we can each contribute to that Marshall Plan. We don't need to wait for the government. Yes, we do need the government, but we don't need to wait. Each of us can do our part.
Awesome. There was a couple of selections from the book that I want you to briefly comment on before we move on with some final messages and thoughts and plugs for the book. But one is from Deepak Chopra, who wrote about No Boundaries Are Real. Another is by President Bill Clinton on the essential dignity of every person's life. And then Cardinal Peter Turkson wrote about From the Same Room. So if you can kind of comment on, and there's a lot of others, but just for the sake of time, maybe comment on.
Yeah, I mean, I invite people to listen to those words. We all come from the same womb. Maybe just take a deep breath. Maybe hold a little bit of quiet for a moment. And let that sink in. Where does it find you? Where do you feel resistance? Where do you find yourself saying, no, I don't trust that? And then where do you find yourself trusting? Where do you find yourself when you hear Deepak Chopra's words? No boundaries are real. What does that mean? Are we all really connected? Nature seems to say that to us. The study of physics seems to say that all of us are in connection with each other, that the boundaries of our skin and our bones are not real boundaries. They're just permeable boundaries. How does that feel to know and to believe that science is telling us that we're all interconnected? And what does that open up in you that would allow you to be more empathic and more loving and more happy yourself? Mm-hmm. If you saw everyone's dignity first, as President Clinton says in the book. Mm-hmm. So these are, in some ways, meditations, Daniel, I would say.
Yeah.
They're invitations to draw inward and maybe not just change the world out there, but change the way you see the world out there. That's a big challenge, and I think the biggest of all that can make the biggest difference.
Awesome. And I love that all these selections that you and Tom have co-edited into this book really will help us to really feel that call to unite and hopefully make action.
That's right.
Happen
as usual, you summarize it perfectly. Feel it. I like to say center, and then connect, and then meet the challenge. Find your center so you feel it. Don't take it from me. Don't argue. Like maybe I've said something, you don't agree with it. Trust me, this is not about whether I think it or not. Let the book go into your center and feel it. And then, as you say, connect with others and meet the challenge. Commit yourself to what you feel in your deepest and truest self. If we all do that in our small ways, then we can make a big difference, I think.
Awesome. So now as we come to a close with a few final last minute things to ask you about. Once again, the book, the book is The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. Tim Shriver has co-edited that. And once again, if you make a $250 donation to this podcast, specialchronicles.com/give, Tim will send you a free signed copy of the book.
Happy to do so. I hope I don't know when we'll find out, but I hope we get at least I don't want to say the number. I hope we get at least 10 people that do $250. I know that's a big number for some people. It's a big number for a lot of people. But consider how powerful it will be to donate $250 to keep Podman Dan on the air and broadcasting his message of faith and hope and awakening. It's worth it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And so with that, why should our listeners read the book? Give us if you were in an elevator, and I know that it depends on how long you're in that elevator for, but give us an elevator pitch from why everyone from all walks of life should read the Call to Unite book.
The Call to Unite book is a front row seat for the best in humanity. It's the seat you're looking to sit in, and it's, as Chris Paul says in it, don't just be a spectator, be a player. This is a handbook for what we should hope to be and create as a country after this pandemic. It will be your companion to find the best you, and it will be your companion to inspire you to make a difference in the world for others too.
Awesome. Well, and how can
I think that was only about a 2-floor ride, I hope. Or maybe.
Yeah. I think it was just a 2-floor ride.
But the thing is, Daniel, a lot of people are struggling now. A lot of people are dealing with a lot of pain and a lot of loss. I mean, I know in my family, we have a lot of grief. We've seen a lot of people leave us in the last year. And we haven't even had a chance to have the funerals. We haven't seen each other. So there's a lot of pain out there. And there's a lot of economic pain, and there's a lot of pain in the world of race and the tension and the old patterns of racism. And there's a lot of pain in our community and people with special needs who've been lonely and forgotten in this pandemic. This is a book to help transform that pain into hope and action.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that you also mentioned in the book is finding your guiding light. So how can our listeners, how can your readers of the Call to Unite book find their guiding light in the pages of this impactful book that I know will make an impact on so many?
I would say open it anywhere. Everyone in this book is writing to you to help you find your guiding light. I'll leave you with Amy Grant, the great singer who's been decorated all over the world in multiple genres of music, has no partisan identity. And she writes about how she learned to do a meditation, and she calls it the meditation, this is how we live and this is who we are. And it says very simply, this is how we live. We're struggling. We feel inadequate. We don't know whether we have what's necessary. We're overwhelmed. This is how we live. And then she says, try this, but this is who we are. We are loved, loved, loved.
Awesome. And what's a message that both you have learned from editing this book and a message that you hope readers will learn from the message? It could be the same message, but what's a message that both you have learned?
Well, I think, Barbara Holmes says, Reverend Dr. Barbara Holmes is a theologian and a professor. Her beautiful book, Joy Unspeakable, is about the experience of people of color in this country and the contemplative practices in the Black church. She starts her selection by saying, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. There's a confidence in her. I think that's the message for all of us. We're going to be all right. She goes on to say, bless someone who doesn't deserve it. Forgive someone who doesn't deserve it. Find your strength somewhere where you haven't found it before. But remember, you're going to be all right. And I think if we shift from we're terrified, we're threatened, to we're going to be all right, we just play that song a little bit more often, we'll find the strength to overcome injustice, and we'll find the joy we need to do it happily.
Awesome. Well, ever since co-hosting the Abu Dhabi Daily Show, which I don't know who came up with that name, it's kind of tongue twister, but the Abu Dhabi Daily Show, the video podcast series on specialolympics.org, usually end on my podcast conversations, and I'll do the same with you, of what does inclusion mean to you? So what does inclusion and
inclusion means we've broken down the barriers. Inclusion means no more scorn. As Father Greg Boyle says in this book, that we've moved to the margins to erase the margins, that we've stopped judging the poor and the struggling by how they behave and start to turn to admire the carry and the load and the pain they bear, that we start to see each other as radiant lights of dignity and beauty. And then everyone's gift will be welcomed. And at that table, at that meal, we can finally, I think, claim to fulfill both the adages of our faith, that we are one, as our shared faith would teach us through the gospel, as well as the mission of our country, that life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness for all, not for some. Pledge allegiance to that flag, and that pledge ends with liberty and justice for all. That's what inclusion means to me.
Awesome. Perfect way to sum up as well this conversation. We'll, as we get to our final plugs, before I let you get back to the rest of the day, and I have to, as you know, I'm one of 4 athletes that work at United Airlines, so I have to get to the airport.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners go buy the book? And once again, we hope that they will. So
they can get the book at Amazon. They can get the book, learn more about the book at unite.us/book. You'll see it right there on the website, unite.us, Amazon, any local booksellers. We like to support the small bookstores. So, if you know one, please support them. You can find out more about all the events I'll be doing over the next week with people like Jewel and my sister Maria and Loretta and Deepak Chopra and Simon Sinek and Dan Smrokowski. All these events you'll see on the website, so you can learn more about how to not just get the book, but join the movement. Be a uniter. That's our big invitation, Dan. In the end of the day, Daniel, it's the same as Special Olympics. Wherever you come from, don't change where you come from. Don't change your tribe, your identity, your background, but add one more to it. In addition to everything you already are, pledge yourself to be a uniter. Get rid of hatred, as you said so beautifully, and be a uniter.
Awesome. So we'll put all these links in the show notes. If you go to specialchronicles.com/call to unite podcast, all the links, including to the book and to unite.us, is all linked there, as well as your social media plugs for both you and the Call to Unite.
Yeah, follow me if you would, please, on Twitter or on Instagram or at LinkedIn. You can find me at Timothy Shriver on Instagram, at all these platforms. You guys know how to do that. The more we follow each other, the stronger the audience we build, the more chances we have to make our movement the one that wins the day in this critical period of time.
Awesome. So we'll put all those social media plugs in the show notes. And once again, final reminder to all the listeners, if they donate $250 to this podcast at specialchronicles.com/give, they will get...
I'm waiting. I'm watching. They get a free book, and if they want it signed by me, they get it signed by me. So $250 is all it costs to change the world by supporting Daniel and getting the book on top of it as your handbook for the future.
Awesome. So specialchronicles.com/give is where you can go to make that monthly or annual $250 donation to this podcast.
I like the way you said that, monthly $250. That's even better.
Yeah, I know. Just do that in.
Nicely done. Slip that in.
It could be annual, but it could be monthly. You never know. So, any final thoughts on your overall time here today?
I just want to say thank you to you, Daniel, for your bravery, your courage, and the love you show when you're confronted with the darkest side of the world, the darkest side of humanity. You just keep it up, man. I'm following behind you, just trying to learn from you and do my part to to be a foot soldier in the inclusion revolution that you're leading. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again in Kazan, Russia, when we're there for the World Winter Games. And
just a year away, we'll be back on the slopes. And again, who would have thought to go to Russia? Everybody thinks, wait a second, we don't like those people, or wait a second, who's judging those people? Not Special Olympics. We go. We're includers. We're the champions of the inclusion revolution. If you welcome us, we're coming. So let's go. Strap on your boots, your ice skates, and we're headed off to Russia next year, and what will be a fantastic games. I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait as well. So once again, thanks. Our guest has been Tim Shriver, co-editor of the Quality Unite Voices of Champions. Thank you again, Tim, for coming on.
Thank you, Daniel.
Until next week, we will choose to include
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
And go ahead and stop that. We hope that you all have enjoyed the special rebroadcasted episode of my Call to Unite conversation with my good friend Tim Shriver. I hope, as you heard at the top of the episode today, that as we celebrate International Podcast Day, today, September 30th, you all first go and follow this podcast, but also go follow Tim's new podcast as well. Need a Lift with Tim Shriver is available now wherever you get podcasts. Wherever you're listening to this podcast right now, go follow Need a Lift with Tim Shriver. I'll make sure to put links in the show notes so you all can go and do that. Meanwhile, as you heard in this special extra rebroadcasted episode, I want to remind you that you can join now and support this podcast. Please join our supporters with a monthly or one-time donation so we can operate our studio and continue our mission, continue our vital mission, as my friend Tim has talked about, giving respect and voice to those of us with disabilities. You can visit specialchronicles.com/plus. That's specialchronicles.com/plus to join now, access our bonus content, and you can help us to keep the technology plugged in, keep this mission of Special Chronicles going. These weekly podcasts, it's such gratifying work to be here in the studio behind the microphone, speaking to you every week, every Monday. I'm so grateful. So please join now at specialchronicles.com/plus. And you can shop our merchandise store. You can show your support for Special Chronicles. Our Special Chronicles merchandise store is managed by Outshine Labels. We have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. You can shop our store and know that 60% of the profits will go back to support Special Chronicles. Specialchronicles.com/shop. That's specialchronicles.com/shop to shop our Disabled Voices Matter line of merch. And remember to go tap that follow button. I'll go ahead and wait for you. Tap that follow button on the Special Chronicles podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and so you never miss a new episode. And go follow Need a Lift with Tim Shriver, his new podcast as well. It's been a busy time here at Special Chronicles, but we have all new episodes that are premiering next month in October that are beginning next week. We coded on location from Washington Dulles International Airport with United Service Ambassadors. So for all new episodes of our popular Unified at Work series, which features conversations about inclusive employment. So make sure that you keep following this podcast, Special Chronicles, so you do not miss all the final episodes of season 5 of our Unified at Work series. Will drop every week, every Monday in October as we celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So that and much more, lots of exciting new episodes as we wrap up this year. So you do not want to miss every Monday. So make sure that you are following the Special Chronicles podcast. And until then, I will talk to you all next week, same time, same place, right here on specialchronicles.com. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles Podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smrokowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes absolutely for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites, original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, specialchronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks, as always, to our business manager, Adam Smrokowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smrokowski, back next week with more stories.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.